Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind. The worst press secretary in modern American history, arguably in American history, Karine Jean-Pierre strikes again. I swear this person has to be the least qualified person for the job. I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen somebody with such an inability to think on their feet. You know, generally the type of person that you want as a press secretary is somebody who has that unique ability that would make them a good lawyer. You know, somebody who's a good actor, somebody who can think on their feet and come up with, decent ideas on the fly, on the go, make it up as they go and come up with some relatively decent arguments. That's the person that you want as the press secretary. And if that person has the ability to also reference facts and sources and really put together some strong arguments, if that's the type of person you got, then you got a top of the line press secretary. Karine Jean-Pierre is the worst at all of those things. She's horrible. She has no ability to speak. She's honestly awful at public speaking. She isn't quick-witted. She has zero ability to come up with things on the fly. And so we keep getting these moments where she looks like a frickin' deer caught in the headlights, and it's just so embarrassing every time. She just defaults to the same garbage talking points that have been debunked a million times, and here we go again. What's it been, like 2.5 years at this point? Well, actually almost 3 years, and Karine Jean-Pierre is still saying the same nonsense. We gotta take a look at this. But actually this video is brought to you guys by a sponsor, so let's play that clip before we get into anything. This video is brought to you by Ground News. Friends, we're in a cultural battle, a culture war, and of course in the battlefield of ideas, the most important armament is information. You need the weapons, you need the tools. Well folks, the best tool is Ground News, and specifically their blind spot tool that allows you to stay informed with everyday's trending topics from left, right, and center sources, and even showing you very interesting metrics with every story, showing you the ideological blind spot, in other words, what the fake news media is trying to suppress. But with Ground News, you can see everything, helping you stay sharp, stay informed, and most important, helping you stay ahead of the propaganda. Folks, Ground News is a fantastic news platform. And best of all, on top of all of it, they're running a limited 40% discount for Hive Mind viewers. A special promotion running to November 30th. So if you want to take advantage now. Links in the description, as well as the pinned comment. A huge thank you to Ground News. Now back to the video. Alright, a huge thank you to Ground News. Now let's get into the context here. You know, the Democrat establishment and the Joe Biden administration, they were hoping that Bidenomics was going to be the key. That's what was going to turn it all around for them, but obviously that fell pretty flat on its face. The idea of Bidenomics, or really Bidenomics branding, becoming probably one of the most toxic concepts in the current political discussion. People are just not buying it. People don't like it. They don't want to see this clown administration celebrating economic wins as the American people continue to lose across the board. And so we're pretty much at the point where Bidenomics has failed, and when met with that clear reality, well, Karine Jean-Pierre just looks awful.
But why do you think it is that when you say the economy is improving and President Biden says the economy is improving, that a majority of Americans outside of this building are not buying it?
So here's the thing. When we walked into this administration, the economy was on a tailspin. That is the fact. Because of the last administration, because of the Trump administration, because of how they dealt with COVID and the pandemic, because they didn't have a comprehensive plan. The president came in, he passed the American Rescue Plan, which was able to get the economy back on its feet, which was able to open up small businesses were able to open up, schools were able to open up, and we understand what Americans have been feeling over the last 2-3 years. It's going to take some time. We get that. It's going to take some time, but it does not take away how we have seen the economy getting back on its feet. We actually had to fix the problem that we saw that the last administration left us.
She is so incredibly awful. The economy was on a tailspin. No, it wasn't. What is wrong with you? The economy was actually in sharp recovery, possibly V-shaped recovery by the end of Trump's term. And that economic downturn that we saw had nothing to do with Donald Trump at all. It had more to do with governors, it had more to do with Congress than it had to do with Donald Trump. What Karine Jean-Pierre is saying here is so detached from the facts and so detached from reality, it's not even funny. This is the claim that she's been making for a year and a half, almost 2 years at this point, that they inherited a bad economy from Donald Trump because of Donald Trump. They inherited a recovering economy, and what they decided to do was to continue the reckless government spending nonsense. They wanted to continue with all the emergency orders and emergency spending so they could continue to grow government. Let's just look at a federal government expenditures chart over the last 10 or so years. Look at government spending from 2015 to 2020. Look how consistent government spending is. It's always within that range. The pandemic hits, and obviously spending went absolutely nuclear. Who was in charge of writing legislation there? Nancy Pelosi. And then, of course, Mitch McConnell and the rest of those clowns partnering with Democrats, spending during the pandemic. It just is what it is. An unprecedented time. The federal government spent way too much money. Businesses were locked down, blah, blah, blah. We get it. It was a weird time. But then we started to recover. Government spending started going down towards the late quarters of 2020. Joe Biden then gets elected and is inaugurated. He was elected on a bunch of promises, one of them being COVID stimulus checks. This was after the pandemic was already pretty much on its end. Most people were going back to work. In fact, most of the jobs that were lost from the pandemic artificially were already regained by the time Joe Biden was inaugurated. I think over 10 million people went back to work. The economy started rolling again, and what did Joe Biden do? He extended the spending. Look at Q1 2021. It's basically the same as peak pandemic spending. This was not necessary. This was wholly unnecessary. And even after that, moving into 2023, government spending is more than 50% higher than it was less than a decade ago. You mean to tell me that that's Donald Trump's fault? You're smoking Hunter Biden crack. It is an absolute lie. The facts are obvious. There was never a need for second round stimulus spending, but that's exactly what Joe Biden did. Artificially pumping money into the economy, artificially boosting demand, making the top 1% trillions upon trillions of dollars, meanwhile shooting up the costs of goods and causing the Federal Reserve to start panicking, altering their monetary policy, and of course leading to a long-term slow roll recession, which is what we're currently in. It's not rocket science, folks. That second round of stimulus was not necessary, and it spurred on a shockwave effect where pretty much every other Western nation and even some Eastern nations followed suit, and everybody was printing stimulus. It was government money printing globally across the globe. It was central bank money printer go burr across the globe. That's what caused the inflation crisis that we're currently living through. Then, of course, it didn't help Joe Biden projecting weakness on the world stage, leading to the invasion of Ukraine, which then saw gas prices skyrocket through the roof, further exacerbating the issue of inflation. Is that Donald Trump's fault? Well, probably, according to Karine Jean-Pierre, in some shape or fashion, but obviously, according to anybody with two working brain cells, no. Obviously, it wasn't Donald Trump's fault. It's this guy's fault.
Watch me. If you think I don't have the energy level or the mental acuity. The best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway. From Charlotte, another line going from in Florida down to Tampa. Of Putin's kleptocracy, yeah.
Yet the Biden administration wants you to believe that actually it's the previous guy's fault who isn't even in office. This administration is done, dusted, collapsed. They're desperate. They can't get a single win. They're still doing the same frickin' shtick of blaming the people before them and continuing to push this nonstop copium. I mean, speaking of copium, Joe Biden said this the other day.
Mr. President, you said you were hoping to get cooperation from Arab leaders. What are you hearing from them when you talk to them? What would you like to see them do?
I'm hearing a lot, but I'm not going to speak to it right now. There's an overwhelming desire on the part of the region to, let me back up. I cannot prove what I'm about to say, but I believe one of the reasons why Hamas struck when they did was they knew that I was working very closely with the Saudis and others in the region to bring peace to the region by having recognition of Israel and Israel's right to exist. You may recall when we did the G20 about a little while ago, I was able to get a resolution, a statement passed through there saying we're going to build a railroad from Riyadh all the way through the Middle East into Saudi Arabia, Israel, et cetera, and all the way up to Europe. Not the railroad, but it would be an underground pipeline and then railroad. The whole idea is there's overwhelming interest, and I think most Arab nations know it, and coordinating with one another to change the dynamic in their region for longer-term peace. And that is what I'm going to continue to work on. Thank you all very, very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody believes that. I can't prove what I'm saying. Yeah, no Sherlock, but I was very close to bringing peace in the region. What? Yeah, you did a great job dealing with Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas. The proof's in the pudding, isn't it? The proof's in the track record. You did a great job in Afghanistan there, Joe, handing over Afghanistan to the Taliban. And let me guess, Joe, we were headed towards the greatest stock market and economic revival ever seen. You were bringing that on, but it just didn't happen that way. But it's still coming. You can't prove it per se, but oh, trust Joe Biden, it's coming. Give me a frickin' break. It's nothing but copium, it's nothing but lies, it's nothing but blame shifting. There's only one crew to blame here, and that is the Democrat establishment. That's Joe Biden. That's the reckless spending, the slow march towards socialism/communism, the horrid, and I mean horrid, foreign policy, the horrid immigration policy. I mean, it's never ending. They have been a failure across the board. Even on some of their core campaign promises, like student loan forgiveness and healthcare reforms, they've done absolutely nothing. Nothing of value. There is not a single Joe Biden achievement or accomplishment. Oh, but my infrastructure plan. That's not a Biden accomplishment. It's hardly an accomplishment to begin with. It was inflationary spending, with a good chunk of it not even aimed towards infrastructure spending. Not to mention it was a bipartisan bill passed in Congress. Both parties, if anything, get credit. It's not a Biden accomplishment. Joe Biden has no accomplishments. He has nothing but a sustained track record of failure. And their only argument is, but it's Donald Trump's fault. It's all Donald Trump's fault. Elect us again so we can solve all the problems that we created. It's the Democrat modus operandi now, isn't it? Burn the place down, then offer to get elected so you can build it back up, only to burn it down again. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, friends, and I will see you on the next one.